The New Orleans Saints have already made one change to their franchise. Could another one be coming in a trade around Marshon Lattimore? Well, reports are indicating that teams have already checked in on the cornerback to see if a trade could actually go down. And hey, the NFL trade deadline is tomorrow, November 5th at 3 p.m. Central Time. This video is probably going out on Monday afternoon, maybe early Tuesday morning, but the trade deadline is November 5th at 3 p.m. Central Time. So be sure to subscribe because we're going to let you guys know if a trade goes down. We're going to break it down, give you all the information you need to know, and I'm going to react from a fan standpoint because, as y'all know, I am a diehard Saints fan. And also just kind of fun little update, we are 152 subs away from reaching our next milestone. And just so you know, we already broke down Dennis Allen being fired. This was fully discussed. We went live early this morning, so that's why you subscribe and turn on your notifications. But if you want to get the information around that, this is the thumbnail. Just look for it on the channel, and you'll get informed around that too. Like I said, Jordan Schultz was the one who reported that Marshon Lattimore could actually be traded. And this was yesterday before kickoff even happened, bright and early at 9:15 in the morning, saying sources that multiple teams have called about the Saints' Pro Bowl cornerback Marshon Lattimore, though it remains unclear if New Orleans would be willing to entertain a deal. The Saints, at the time of this post, are 2-6 and get Derek Carr back today. Rival teams believe that a loss to Carolina could prompt New Orleans to explore multiple moves. Well, they made one. They fired Dennis Allen. That is done. That is signed, sealed, delivered. And to be honest, I was kind of in the camp of, oh, Marshon Lattimore's not getting traded. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, this was beforehand, and now here we are afterwards. The Saints lost. It sucked. One of the ugliest games of football I've ever watched, to be quite honest. And when it comes to New Orleans, this is a team that ultimately needs to make changes. And Foster Morrow today, speaking to media, said it, changes don't happen unless changes are made. You can't make changes without making changes. So when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, in terms of building for the long term and building for the future, is Marshon Lattimore a part of that plan? That is a thing that you have to answer. And it's not just because they lost to the Panthers. Guys, this is a historically bad season. I've talked about it just to a great extent on this channel. But 7 losses in a row for the first time since '99. I posted on social media. I gave my video reaction after the game in the studio. And I mean, to be honest, first of all the Falcons fans that were in my mentions, thank you for the interactions. I'm glad to know that you're my biggest fans and I'm your favorite YouTubers. Anyway, long story short, this is a trade that actually could go down because of how bad this team has been, because of how bad this team is injured, because of how bad this team has played and has been managed this entire season outside of those first 2 weeks. So in terms of the trade and in terms of financials, how does this impact New Orleans? I'm here to tell you, I don't know if a trade actually makes sense. Could you get some draft capital back? Sure. But if you trade him, it triggers a $31.6 million cap charge for 2025. And it really only saves about $1.2 million this year. And on top of that, not only does it trigger this large payday, it doesn't clear any money next year. So, this is to Spotrac, this is to over the cap. Go look at the numbers. I'm here to tell you, a trade for Marshon Lattimore, sure, maybe you can get some money or some compensation back. But the big thing would be to clear up money, and I'm not necessarily sure it makes a ton of sense because $1.2 million to save, or saving only $1.2 million, but having to spend so much doesn't really feel like it's all that worth it, in my opinion. So what would you do if you were the GM? If you were, I guess now Darren Rizzi, the interim head coach, or if you were Mickey Loomis, what would you do with Marshon Lattimore? Type trade, type keep. Understanding that the finances don't necessarily favor New Orleans. Also understanding that the New Orleans Saints could potentially try to convince teams to take on some of the contracts similar to what kind of happened and what was the chatter around the Devontae Adams trade, where The Jets were willing to take, or not the Jets, the Raiders, excuse me, were willing to eat some of the money. The Jets were not. Not the Jets were not. The Jets were not going to be we're not going to be forced to pay him that much money later on. Long story short, would you trade or keep Marshon Lattimore? The money kind of goes up and down, and that kind of brings me to this point. This is a player, we're talking about a guy who is the best corner in franchise history, without a fail, without a doubt. He is the best cornerback to ever suit up in the black and gold, the best cornerback to ever have a fleur-de-lis on the side of their helmet. He deserves to go and compete for a ring. There's no question about it. But again, I'm not sure it makes sense financially. And we can look at these numbers right here. $605 guaranteed dollars for the new team this season. The new team next year, you have to pay $18 million non-guaranteed. 2026, you pay $18.5 non-guaranteed. So for a team to trade for Marshon Lattimore, it's appealing now, but in the future, you still got to pay a lot of money. The Saints have $14 million in dead money this year. The Saints will also have $31.6 million in dead money. That's that cap hit that I was talking about just a second ago. So my point being, when it comes to a Marshon Lattimore trade, this doesn't make financial sense for the New Orleans Saints. And why else would you trade Marshon Lattimore away? You're already hurt. You have not a lot of CB depth. I love Marshon Lattimore. I don't want to see him go. I can understand why. Just looking at the numbers, it doesn't financially make sense in my personal opinion. Now, what teams could actually be interested? This is a conversation here. I think any of these 5 teams are a destination to watch out for, specifically the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. I think those are 2 teams that, one, could really use a cornerback, and 2, with the ties with Aaron Glenn and the ties to Dan Campbell, Marshon Lattimore might actually have a desire to want to go and play in Detroit if, that is where things kind of stand there. I don't know. I'm not here to speculate on all that, but I do think Detroit makes some sense. I think Washington makes a lot of sense. Kansas City, they're just always making trades, man. They're always reloading for a Super Bowl run and whatnot, so can't count them out. But then also don't sleep on the Vikes or the Ravens. Now, coming up next, we're going to discuss another player to keep an eye out for at the trade deadline, because I don't think Marshon Lattimore is the only player teams are actually interested in trading for, so we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I want to say thank you so much to GameTime for sponsoring today's video. They also sponsored our live show and our video earlier today. It's because they're so amazing. That's why we keep talking about them. GameTime is my favorite ticketing app for a plethora of reasons. That's right. I use the word plethora correctly. Shout out to the University of Arkansas. You can go get tickets to see some live events, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, something in theater, or maybe you want to go see Tulane. Maybe you want to go see LSU versus Alabama at Death Valley, or maybe you want to go check out this Saints game against the Falcons with Dennis Allen being gone, Darren Rizzi taking over. I think that you guys got to get set up at GameTime. And I also want you to plug in the promo code CHATSPORTS. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. They also have a feature called GameTime Picks that I absolutely love. It filters out all the fluff to show you only great deals on seats that you're actually interested in. So that way you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets that you know you're not going to buy anyway. So download the GameTime app. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but use code CHATSPORTS when you download the GameTime app and you create an account. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It is game time. So let's talk about Chase Young as another trade candidate, because I think that he's a player that you got to keep your eyes on as this November 5th, 3 p.m. Central Time trade deadline quickly approaches. This coming in from Bleacher Report, last week, I would say. And I think it's telling that teams might be interested in him. I don't know. I'm kind of in the camp of, look, the Saints have a bad pass rush. Chase Young gets a lot of pressures, but I also can sit here and say this. I don't think that trading or keeping him is going to long-term help this team out, and I'm really focusing on how can we fix this long-term. So a trade for you to kind of gauge and a trade for you to kind of look at and be like, all right, what can we expect? Well, Josh Uche went to the Chiefs for a 2026 6th-round pick. So could you get something better than that? fingers crossed, I sure hope so. I would love for the New Orleans Saints to be able to land a 5th round pick. A 4th round would be awesome, but I just don't think it's very realistic. So I wouldn't mind a 5th round pick for Chase Young. He is a player who does get a lot of pressures, over 30 pressures this season, but it's not a lot of sack production, unfortunately. And that's exactly what he was brought in to do, is to get sacks and to pressure the quarterback and turn pressures into production. Just hasn't happened quite well enough, in my personal opinion. Now, who could trade for Chase Young? These 5 teams right here are all needy for some pass rush help. I think the Eagles could be a team to watch out for. Green Bay, Baltimore, Dallas, and Detroit. Dallas does have some injuries looming with DeMarcus Lawrence. They also, are a team that maybe is in like a panic mode of, oh crap, we got to trade for something. We got to bring people in because we got to keep trying to win and try to make the playoffs. Like, that's where some of these teams are in this situation. But like Detroit, Baltimore specifically, those are teams that are winning a lot of football games, playing a lot of good football. And honestly, I could see them bringing in a guy like Chase Young just to have more depth at pass rush. I mean, Detroit lost Aiden Hutchinson already. So maybe that is a team that would be interested. Could Detroit trade for both Marshon Lattimore and Chase Young? I seriously doubt it, but it would be crazy if they made it happen. So to round things out, I didn't really want to ask a ton of questions, but I did want to give you guys the chance to sound off. If you need to blow some steam off, therapy is in session. Just get down in the comments, share your thoughts, voice your frustrations, voice your opinions. Or hell, if you just want to celebrate saying, thank God Dennis Allen's gone. Thank God this season's almost over. Thank God we're making the right decisions finally. It's your turn. It's your therapy session. I'm just here to listen. So get down in the comment section. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.